Blessed love and peace in Rastafari. This is a follow up on the previous joint about yourself. Plus additional considerations. So, in the past week, brief conversation with kinfolk about how much longer, asking the question, how much longer do you think you have to be yourself? And then the immediate follow up for that one is, and what do you want to do in the meanwhile, whilst you are yourself? So, I mentioned before that the further explanation and guidance from that question abstains from being articulated at the moment of the initial conversation. A little bit clumsiness, this and the other, but that's what it is. So I'm sharing this solution, answer to that question. Haha. I'm going to say a blessing though first. Bismillah ar-Rahmani ar-Rahim. Allahu Akbar. Dao ke dao fei chang dao. Min ke min fei chang min. Ja Rastafari. Deus nos te quies in cele sanctificito nomen tuum. Vaheguru sanam. Baruch ata Elohim Eloheinu melech haolam shechakol nehiyah b'divaro. Amen. Kyrie eleison, sevomastu, save jagatehi, save sata bhavantu sukhitata. Fagabiyam. Aquaba upendo na amanim. Fakiri nesanam. Chintadam permean. Libo vimem. Umanjekam. Ubuntu shabono fakitga. Sheshe. Kamo senidam. Domo arigato. Pilama yela wakantakan. Tok odokushin good. God, we thank you for all with you bless us. Go God. Ata jam yata afanami. Vado ho om shanti shanti shanti. Amen. So, how much longer do you have to be yourself? How much longer do you think you have to be yourself? Solution. So this joint providing an answer to that question, or some guidance to answer that question. And then some additional considerations from additional topics, experiences, and concerns. Solutions. So the idea about this joint, how much longer do you think you have to be yourself? The recognizing, as the brother said at that time, how other influences have a significant factor in who we become in life as adults, and that joie de vivre, that joy of living, that the joy itself, affection itself, has a tendency of being extremely infringed, minimized, because people are utilized as workhorses, whether it's intellectual workhorses or physical workhorses. And once people have life obligations, marriage and children, those are utilized as leverage to keep the workhorses working. And so the workhorses have blinders and just stay on that grind. And it's not just a matter of being happy. It's a matter of like who you are and like fulfilling purpose in life. And being married and children is a significant purpose in life. But even then, there's further purpose than just that itself as well. And perpetuating just existence. So, answer, guidance in response to that question. To answer that question, it's a matter of first saying, like, who are you? Who is you? And that's a big question right there, because particularly as young well, at any stage of life, but as youth, who we are is an amalgamation of all the influences within our lives: parents, teachers, family, peers, friends, media, social expectations, and additionally, all these shape our views, our ideas, our beliefs, our wants, our values, how we value ourselves, how we value others, our likes, our interests. And so all these things that a lot of time, particularly in Western society, we think, oh, we just do it because it's ourselves, it's our individual will. You were taught that, you were told that, you were told to do this, you were told to do that. You might have a certain skill, so you're told to do that further. You might provide a certain benefit to a certain demographic in society, whether it's your family, your religion, your community, your school, your society, your slave masters, whoever it may be. And then you get encouragement, you get the carrots for doing that. And then also you get told that it's you who are doing it, it's your own skill. Kudos to you. So it becomes this notion of ego and, oh, I'm doing it myself, and I'm self-made and everything else like that. Be careful about that. Ain't nobody self-made. So that's the point of, like, just start to think about who you are. Why do you like this? Why do you like that song? Why do you like that TV show? Why do you like that film? Why do you like whatever? Why do you like that instrument? Why do you like this genre of music or literature or otherwise? And recognize who influenced you, and how does that affect you? Where is that leading you? What kind of circles does that guide you in? And recognize how a lot of that, particularly when kinfolk are ascended within the academic experience, elite schools, and additionally, much of that influence doesn't come from your ancestors. It doesn't come from the eternal self. It comes from the vying, the hierarchies, the competitions of society, and with the purpose of just placing oneself in that matrix. So just being mindful of that. What is it that you like? What is it that makes you you? What is it that you like to do? What is it that gives you enjoyment, fulfillment, or the perception of fulfillment? And I don't mean to be derogatory. I just know from personal experience, like how as a youth you get enveloped in a whole lot of frivolous bullshit, and then start to have nostalgia with that, and so then there's a sense of loyalty, like, oh, that's I gotta stay true to this because that's who we are. But in actuality, wait, that's not healthy. That's not even right. So it's just a matter of recognizing what those affinities are, where those affinities come from, what the effects of those affinities are. And that's when we start to find our further true self. So that true self, as again, it's always an amalgamation. It's always a confluence of influences. So I'll put three categories of our true self, respectively. First category is the eternal self. Is the we can say God, we can say Tao, we can say Allah, Hashem, Brahman, Buddha, nature. It's the eternal oneness that's within all things. That's within us. And it's the exact same within all of us. So that's the first thing. And studying that, learning what our ancestors and teachers and professors and prophets and sages teach us about that eternal self. But that's the first part of who we are. The second part of who we are, the second category, is our earthly self. And so in this sense, what we're talking about is where we come from, our ancestors, our language, our culture, our heritage, the lineage that we come from, religion, family, geography, culture, language, social experience, all those things. That's our earthly experience, because we're part of a continuum, and there's a large momentum. We're just a blip in this thing of life. So there's a large momentum, and so it's beneficial for us to have a knowledge about where we come from, because that helps us guide ourselves and where we're going and where we're continuing. It keeps us rooted. It keeps us. I mean, it's exactly who we are. Exactly a significant part of who we are. And so when we want to feel peace and we want to feel valued in a healthy, genuine way, when we want to feel connected and in relationship, we need that earthly self. We need to have a knowledge about that earthly self. So that's the second category. Then the third category itself is the conditioned self. So this is what I mentioned before in terms of what we're taught to be. And that comes from our religious teachers, that comes from our parents. But significantly, it also comes from teachers, it comes from our peers, our classmates, our co-workers, media, social, celebrities, society, and additionally, and that then in a secular, democratic republic society, that has an increasing effect because there's this pervading religiosity of individualism, and in that experience of individualism, the individual is increasingly exposed and susceptible to the influences outside of the traditional constructs of family and religion and even culture. So just being mindful of that influence and what the purpose and where that influence is guiding some individuals. So those are the three categories, and it's a matter of like looking at cause and effect, looking at healthy and unhealthy of each of those influences, and when we mature in life, we start to have further patience for our parents amidst all the continuing disagreements and everything else like that. We start to have better appreciation and even respect, if not full agreement, and parents can do some nasty things as well. So it doesn't have to be a matter of like forgiveness or even reconciliation, but just having a better understanding. And part of, well, that's a little bit of a side note, but it all factors into it. So our self are those three components, generally speaking. So when we look about how long do we have to be ourself, getting a job, doing the grind is not a death sentence. It's not necessarily the end of personal self. It's not the end of earthly self or otherwise. It's a matter of just recognizing, well, how about this? The solution, as I said before, songs, stories, rituals, and ethics. Um, Investing ourselves in the songs and the stories that are affirmational, that are healing, that are supportive of our eternal self, of our earthly self, and there's legitimacy within our conditioned self. So socializing and having recreations and hobbies and interests, that's beautiful. But being mindful of that and understanding how it fits in the context of other things. So, but the songs and stories that are affirmational in each of those experiences of ourselves. Um, and uh, distancing ourselves from the unhealthy songs and the unhealthy stories that lead individuals into hedonism, intoxication, indulgence, abuses towards others, towards oneself, that are very popular for a brief period, um, and then the next one comes along. So again, as youngster, I get enveloped in that as much as, well, it's not a comparison, but I get enveloped in that similar with others. So, but once we are aware, once we awaken to those conditions, it's a matter of like, and again, it's that nostalgia thing about like, oh yeah, this is what the song we used to listen to when I was in school, and we used to be at the house, and we used to be at the club or wherever else. So then that initial simple hedonistic thing, unhealthy thing, gets further significance because there's memories and there's relationship attached to it. So it can be difficult letting those things go, but it can be very healthy to let those things go. And it doesn't have to be a matter of condemnation and decrying and like officially lambasting or forsaking something, but just, okay, nah, I'm not about that type of stuff. And then focusing increasing on things that are healthy, that are affirmational. Those songs at your house, at the house party, the club. I guess it would be a different type of club, but anyway, those social experiences and memories and relationships that are affirmational, where you have conversations that are meaningful and that are productive, that aren't even just ambitious and like uh, greedy, but healthy and feeling positive and peaceful. So that's how we maintain ourselves, even within the jobs, because that guides us in the decisions of what jobs we accept. And additionally, how we value the different attributes and characteristics of a job, and how we commit ourselves accordingly. Um, so, rituals. I shared this advice with mixed people many years ago, through the years, about and even just multicultural people, particularly in the context of how to keep friendships with people who are of different ethnicities than oneself. Because after university, it's not there's not that structured support for having those type of relationships. People kind of getting back into their own circles, and then like those circles say, oh, you got to do this for us. You got to contribute, and you got these obligations. You're an adult. You're a leader in our community. You don't have time to play around and do kumbaya with all these other groups or whatever, unless there's significant returns on that type of investment. So and at university, at college, even grad school, that's further available. High school is further available. Afterwards, it's less. It requires further proactivity. So consideration in that context, in terms of relationships with people of different ethnicities and cultures, but even for oneself and in maintaining one's own culture and heritage, is finding the rituals, they like the yearly rituals, particularly to honor and to participate in Diwali. I'm trying to think of community-friendly examples. People do Christmas, um, Holi, um, Pesach, Eid, but a lot of these are very religious specific. But for those who practice that particular religion, do those rituals, and that connects us with our families. It connects us with our communities. It connects us with our heritage, our ancestors. It connects us with the eternal self. And that again, it guides us for us to keep ourselves, because when we attend those rituals, again, we're having memories, we're having relationships in a way that's sustaining, and the employer, whether it's white collar, blue collar, whatever collar, has to have a respect for that, because that employer recognizes that your strength and the benefits that you're bringing to the company are gleaned from those relationships and that support in the community. Then the employer says, oh, I hear you're a part of this community. Well, we've been trying to market, da 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 da. So anyway, that's a little bit of a reductionist kind of rationale or whatever, but that's the pragmatics of the game. But it's a matter of you having that foundation and resilience accordingly. So rituals are a significant joint within one's own self, and then also again in the context of having relationships with people, friendships with people from different cultures, finding those rituals, traditional rituals that are mid autumn festival, New Year's, Lunar New Year, finding those festivals that are accessible, that genuine, and regular, where kinfolk congregate with each other, and those relationships strengthens, because once a year might seem like forever to see each other, but when you think about that compared to never again in life, once a year is very, very favorable. And twice a year, what and particularly when people have obligations with a family, and visiting family, and children visiting grandparents and different continents, and additionally, being able to connect with friends for the next 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years once a year. Wow, that's riches. That's riches upon riches, blessings upon blessings. So that's part of it. And then again, ethics. Ethics is like foundation, because ethics is who you are. That's like who you are in this life. It's not about all this. It's like how you live. So again, as a self, as a personal self, eternal self, living with ethics is way to sustain yourself, like avoiding as much as possible the corruption, the temptation, getting off track, and everything else like that. Ethics. And then again, when connecting with people of different cultures, whatever, having shared ethics. So you have a foundation, a solid foundation for sustained cooperation, sustained interaction, and cohesion. And again, when kinfolk have that relationship with each other, communities respect that too. Like, yo, we hear you got a friend within the so and so community. We've been looking at doing something. Again, reductionist rationalization. However, pragmatic. So there it is, and that's solution. And that this is just reverting to what I always say. What Kongzi says always. But that's the wisdom. That's truth. So. What else? All right. Oh, and then just continue in that respect. Rivers. Looking at who our personal self is, who our earthly self is, looking back into our ancestry. Some of us may have super details for many generations about our ancestry. Some of us may have zero, Z. So basic consideration is looking at as much of the history as known, and even beginning where one is at this moment, where one is situated, where one is born, how much, whatever people know about people's parents and the migration, and further. Amidst that, looking at the rivers and just connecting with the rivers. That's a meaningful, significant, tangible, esoteric experience and relationship with Earth and with our heritage, with our ancestors, prophets and sages. So the rivers tell us stories, true stories, and then from that, learning about the languages of our ancestors as much as possible. Learning some basic words, learning some songs, because when we go to the rituals, this is what we're doing. And then calendars. Calendars tell us when the rituals occur. So that's part of, again, confirming our self. And then that's a continual process in life, learning and strengthening and sharing. And when we have that, then we have the answer to that question of how much longer do we think we have to be ourselves. As long as the Most High decide. So anyway, all right. Now, to be honest, actually, that conversation exists in the context of surrounding dissonance, contestation, because there's militancy in terms of activism. I've already addressed this, but that was the exact context, because in the same time frame, there's activists active. And part of the concern about the methodology of the activists at this moment is it's not, it doesn't seem to be too serious in terms of like aggressions and militancy, but there are overtures, and there are approaches, and so I'll put it like this, right? We see people wearing symbols, and we see people who aren't of that culture, and additionally repping symbols. I can be specific. We're talking about the kufiye, and additionally kinfolk who are very, very confidently not Muslim, very confidently not Palestinian, rocking the kufiye. And when I see that in previous years, I think appropriation. unsanctioned appropriation, meaning that like it's not there's an absence of an affiliation with a Muslim community or a Palestinian community. It's just like a fashion statement or kind of rebellious fashion statement. Um, what we see now is people doing that, but it seems as though it's in some type of solidarity with the Muslim community and or the Palestinian community. But even then, it's a political thing, and it's there's an increasing aggression with it because um, protests here and there, this and the other. People walking around with paraphernalia, um, and I'm trying. There's specific concerns that I'm referencing, but I'm thinking how to frame this. Through the years, where I live here in the village, in the Coventry area, they're periodically, obviously, like when things get down to election time or thereabouts, people start doing surveys. Young people, particularly, but all older people too. And it's, I mean, people do surveys for a number of different reasons. And some people are paid to do the surveys; it's their job. Some people it's volunteers; they're part of like some political activist group or whatever. And the people can be rather aggressive in stopping people and trying to talk to people, and additionally, to the point of harassing people. And I've experienced that a number of years ago. The brethren would stop me every time, right here in the village where I live. I'm going to do work. I'm doing to run some errands, and the brother every time would stop me. And I told him, "Yo, nah, I'm not doing this. Don't talk to me like this. Like if you want to have a genuine conversation, let's do that. But yo, stop stopping me." And it got to a point where he would walk away. He would, whenever he saw me, he would like turn away and like walk and avoid me. So I'm like, fine, that's if that's how it's going to be, then at least you're not stopping me. And that's it's important to recognize stopping harassing, being aggressive. And it's almost to the point like it doesn't even seem like the intention is to get signatures or do a survey or anything else like that. Or petition, I guess is the actual word. It doesn't even seem like it's actually seemed like just to cause static, to cause stress. And that seems to be the point, because that's basically what seems to be being done. Um, because I'm not a U.S. citizen. I don't vote. I'm not registered. I don't even know any of those whatever's on the referendum or whatever. So I can't even follow through and say, was this actually the thing? But just based upon what is observed, it's not even a matter of signing up. It's a matter of either communicating something or harassing people. So again, the brother at some point just started like walking away and would avoid me, be passive aggressive, like I'll say why the passive aggressive, but would just avoid me, but at the same time would still be around. And he was part of a collective that was doing it. This is a few years ago. At one point, I'm walking in the middle of the day with my Moor along the sidewalk, and he sees me. Actually, he was hiding behind like a window in the building, so he wasn't the most evident. But as I get to that vicinity where he is, there he is. And so again, rather than walking away from me at that point, he kind of leans over from the behind the window, like it was a little indentation kind of thing. So in a window, it was like a walk-in kind of thing. So anyways, he leans in from there, and then grabs my mother's hand to get her attention. And as I communicated to brethren recently, on the streets, that's a death sentence. That's a death warrant. Um, and that's what I'm talking about, because um, that's the type of aggression and the type of instigation, the type of prodding that's being done. That's one instance. But once that's done, that's then seeing anybody doing petitions and surveys, it becomes a tenuous situation, because things can escalate very quickly. And the thing is, people aren't trying to get a fight, because what they do is they call the police and this, that, and the other. And then the police come, and then people get irate. Oh, he did this. He put his hands on me. This, that, and the other. And then the police say, "Oh, we're gonna have to put." No, we're not. No, we're not. No, we're not. No, we're not. And then things get in that situation. So that's the concern um, from these provocations of these simply surveys and petitions. Um, not even doesn't even matter what it's about. That's where things are, and particularly in the tensities of society at this moment. Um, yeah, it's instigation, and it's causing stress, and it's causing sack. It's kicking up dust. Um, and I have conversations with kinfolk. I have extend just a couple of days ago. Say it might have been the same cause. I don't know. It looked like some people say they're on the job. Some people say they're volunteering. I don't. Whatever they're slanging, I'm not. We're not buying it. But just a few days ago, maybe a day or two before that, well, I have yet to say what the incident is, but in the past week, I'm sitting in a few blocks away, and I'm in the middle of saying a prayer. I'm about to have some this, and I'm in the middle of a prayer, and a brother comes up to me. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. I don't mean to bother you. What are you talking about? I'm praying right now, and in like my head is bowed, my eyes are closed, and you're coming up to me. So I try to be patient, and it's a youngster. It looks like maybe 18, 19 years old, and he seems to be very congenial and conversational. But yo, if you see somebody praying, an elder praying, hold up, patience, wait. If it's that important, wait. So right there, that's provocation right there. That's instigation, regardless of what the purpose is. So I stop my prayer and I say, what's going on, brother? And so he says, yeah, let me tell you about. I'm like, so I said, hold up, no. We got something better. So we start talking, and he's like, yo, please tell me. I'm like, oh, wait, hold up. You want me to tell you? You want me to teach you? And the brother seemed extremely kind and extremely responsive, extremely interested in what he said, because he didn't even tell me he wasn't slinging this thing at that point. He said he's on this job, but he wants to hear what I have to say. I'm like, well, hold up. You want to hear what I have to say? But I'm saying a prayer. So I'm conversation with him for a minute, and then he said, well, hold up. He got a phone call. So, and I'm supposed to sit there and wait for him to finish his phone call, to finish the conversation. So I pause for a second. He gets off and continues on. Then again, another call. I'm like, hold on, no. All right, go ahead, do the thing. I got my prayer to do. So I do my prayer. So he gets off his phone. He says, okay. And I'm in my prayer now. So then I finish my prayer. He continues to speak with me, and then we continue the conversation. But again, it's the mission. It's the people, young people it's also middle-aged and elders too, but people being sent, people being employed by bosses to do things, to instigate, to cause static and disruption, and with seemingly very little regard or squabbles. With I'll just say with no fucks given. So that's the concern. It's the intended instigation, but it's also what seems very rampant amongst young people today of extremely little respect and extremely little deference for anybody, and including for elders, for adults, and just this notion of like I have the prerogative of doing whatever, and that's a concern as well. Um, so that was a week ago. The brother stopped me whilst praying. A few years ago, brother grabbed the hand of my Moor whilst we were walking. Problematic. And so again, whenever we see people with petitions, surveys, that it's on edge at that point, because that's it. That's the situation. So then, in the past week, for a number of days, I could see the surveys going around and around, and I could see the surveys surveying. Like there's a reading of me particularly, like cats looking at me and kind of like being on the phone. It's like they were trying to like um, discern the approach to talking with me, and this went on for a few days. I would sit in the village, cats would talk around me, go past me, talk to other people, kind of look at me, stand in front of me, and kind of like see what the response might be or otherwise. And that went on for a few days. And eventually, on Pesach, I'm sitting on the bench, and people can say whatever about the timing of that, but I'm sitting on a bench, just sitting and doing what I do in the village, just being quiet. I'm not being quiet, but I'm just sitting there at that moment. And the brother comes up to me, another brother comes up to me and wants to like explain his thing, whatever. I'm like, no. And I explain to him why. So we have a constructive conversation. I tell him what I mentioned just a minute ago. And so even after all that, then he still wants to sell me his thing. I'm like, do you not understand? Like, it's not happening. So, another thing along those lines is like young people having this arrogance of perceiving themselves as having the solution, and particularly when talking to an elder, and perhaps particularly talking to an elder who's of a different ethnicity. Just this air of superiority, even in the liberal front, of just like, we have the answer, we are superior, you should listen to us and do what we say. Yo, it doesn't even seem to be intentional of accomplishing anything. It just seems to be causing static and dissonance. So there's even little reasoning at this point in that respect, because one, if for anybody, but particularly for a youngster, and I don't mean that derogatorily, but a young person who has a genuine involvement, genuine devotion to a cause, you don't just go around telling people and trying to like convince people or sign people up. If it's genuine, you sit down and talk with people, ask them what they got going on, and build that conversation and build that relationship. It's not just a matter of like, because that's the imperialist way, and you're talking about not being imperialist and conquering imperialism, but you're doing it through imperialist means. So, all right, and cats know that. I mean, it's so obvious. It's like, it's not even. The people who orchestrate this already know this, and aren't doing it for the purpose of whatever the proposed cause is. The activists who are doing it, who are being employed, might have some idea about it, might have not, but just they've attached their ambitions to that particular cause. This, what I'm articulating now, is for the sake of kinfolk who may have a slight awareness or otherwise, and just need some affirmation, encouragement, of finding a better way of doing it. But to be honest, like, the hopes aren't even on youth at this point. The hopes are basically on, it's not even a matter of hopes. The trust and the faith concentration is on people who are walking the walk, whether it's young, middle-aged, old, whatever. The youth ain't got credibility. The youth ain't got credibility as a generality. There are some within youth that do. There's some within middle age. There's some within elders that do. But youth as a category, serious trouble. Too much corruption. Too much drinking the Kool-Aid. So, all right, let me be constructive. There's a purpose here. There's a point this is going to. So, again, when seeing the protests, when seeing the activists, when seeing the petitioners, the surveys, there's tension, there's stress, there's static. So, that's for the activists. We also observe, again, generally within much of the youth, there being a lack of deference, particularly in that arrogance of thinking of having solutions that elders don't have or haven't already discerned, and just presuming to manage and administrate elders. And by elders, I'm just saying any people of seniority. There's little productive reasoning with that mentality. Even like explaining that to kinfolk, it's like, nah, it's not worth it. It's not worth the effort. It's not worth the investment. if you want to learn, find us and study, because these gift wrap joints are beyond the pay grade of the standard practitioner. So that's some of the challenges with the recent activism. And then I mentioned before the whole issue of Palestine, Israel. I've given the spiel on that, but one thing I didn't say actually is that I did write it, but I'll say this verbally, is that one of the other concerns is how this whole thing is a smokescreen covering up the genocide being waged against Native people and against people of African ancestry on this continent. And that is also frustrating when people presume themselves to be like the epitome of politically correct and all types of polluted. So that's another concern. And black folk, white folk, brown folk, yellow folk, red folk, orange folk, olive folk, all folk involved in the imperialists are culpable of that. So there's plenty of the guilt is shared by each of the practitioners, regardless of what the ethnicity, religiosity, or otherwise is. So all that being said, this is the kicker, and then I think it's beneficial for me to wrap up at this point. Just plain and simple, the U.S. Constitution is evil. I'm not saying the framers of the Constitution are evil. I'm not saying anybody is evil. I'm saying the behavior, the compact, the contract to continue behaving in that way is evil. If you need an explanation of why it's evil, it's a strong word, and I don't think I've heard somebody say that before, to be honest. People have a lot of different criticisms about the U.S. Constitution. I've said before, the U.S. Constitution does a whole lot in terms of facilitating social order, political order, economic productivity amidst the exploitation of the Western Hemisphere. But it is an evil. It involves the ongoing enslavement, persecution, oppression, raping of earth and peoples. So that is the reason why it is evil. And those who sign up to it are committing evil. Citizens of the United States are committing evil. Citizenship of the United States is evil. Plain and simple. And it's particularly evil because it knows what it's doing, and it does it, and then it tries to deceive and do other things. It's an evil. It's not the end of things. There is the prospect, the propensity for redemption. But it's necessary to recognize what it is, what it does, what it has done. And so in these activisms that are just referenced in the recent moments, whether it's Palestine, Israel, environmentalism, civil rights, all the activisms that recruit people to be politically involved in the United States political system, all of those activisms are evil because it is recruiting people to participate in an evil contract, an evil construct. And that's what's frustrating, because religious practitioners, people of a religion, know better than to do that, have an obligation to not do that. And that's what's further frustrating. And then kinfolk like me, who are perceived as outsiders, foreigners, dilettantes, and fake, and wannabe, and whatever, get accused of being heretical or otherwise, not knowing what we're talking about, being naive. They don't count. They're fake. They're just whatever. I don't hear that much of that type of criticism because, for the most part, people just avoid and deny and ignore. But there is a certain susceptibility, a certain air of that criticism. But the truth is beyond whoever I am, and beyond whoever anybody else is either. So, but that's the frustration, is that the United States Constitution is an evil compact, and recruitment of people to participate in that is evil. And religious practitioners, religious leaders recruiting people to participate in that. So, I love everybody. I love all U.S. citizens. We love all U.S. citizens. We love all peoples of the world. We know all peoples of the world are doing the best that peoples can. We say that it might sound contrite or overutilized or too rote or whatever, but we know that. But at the same time, we have to acknowledge what is being done and that we can do better. All of us can do better. It is not a condemnation of anybody. It is a condemnation of behavior. And it's not even a condemnation of behavior. It's a proclamation of the harms of the behavior and a call for people to do better, for people to find a better compact, to establish a better compact, a better contract with each other, to cooperate. We've shared a number of different examples through the years, many painstaking drafts of different contracts, compacts, methodologies of cooperation, and additionally, eventually people have to find something of people's own volition and otherwise, but we don't have to call on anything. We don't have to summon, we don't have to rally people to respond. We don't have to rally people to do this, that, or the other in this respect, because it's doing its own thing. Our job is to inform and to provide some type of encouragement for people to find a healthier way. But that's what it is. The U.S. Constitution is an evil construct. It's not the exclusive, and as I mentioned, the United States is not even like the epitome of the imperialism of the world. But it is a focal point, and the U.S. Constitution is a focal point because it is a significant mechanism for imperialism around the world, because many of the constitutions around the world, over 100, are predicated upon the U.S. Constitution. So there's a need for significant change, and we're not calling for that at this. I mean, how do I say that? We abstain from rallying people. We abstain from endeavoring to organize people to change the whatever. We're just sharing the information. People have to do it on people's own. I and I here are articulating the circumstances, the diagnosis, the living gnosis. With the specific purpose here to be aware that calls to participate within the U.S. Constitution are evil. Article 1, Section 2, Paragraph 3, 3/5 compromise. The thing that nobody believes today, we say, oh, it's not there. It's not what we believe. It's the law. That's an example of the evil because it does something that is an atrocity to life. And then it discourages people to lie about it, to be deceptive, to be deceitful, to be deceptive about it, to pretend otherwise. And it's a compounded atrocity. It's a compounded malfeasance. And the ongoing intentionality of manifesting that malfeasance, that is what is evil. And I'm for my life, going on 50 years, I abstain from calling anything evil. Because I don't like that religious condemnation type stuff. But things are getting to that point where it has to be called out for what it is. And that type of language tends to lead people to be non-thinking and just be reactionary. But it's beneficial to look at the reason why. To look, first you can just look at what the United States does in terms of warfare, military, exploitation, pollution, destruction of the environment, murdering people, raping people, torturing people, and additionally, can we not call those things evil? And then when we look at how that these things, the United States is not the only entity that does that. Not only nation, not only kingdom, not only republic, not the only political entity, not the only religious entity or whatever that does that. But then we have to look into like the causal factors, like what precipitates this, and then like what's the ideology, and how can we identify the cause and effect of what is precipitating this behavior. So the buck stops at the U.S. Constitution. So then when we study the U.S. Constitution, where does this say that this type of activity is allowable? Well, there's the actual word that the U.S. Constitution is, and then there's a lot of what is not said in the U.S. Constitution itself, but is part of the ideology that precipitates the U.S. Constitution. So again, the U.S. Constitution is basically a power sharing agreement. And so it doesn't say go out and pillage this, that, and the other. The 3/5 compromise, Article 1, Section 2, Paragraph 3, is one of the most direct evidence of the atrocities. Because in these type of documents, don't want to call out the atrocities knowing that it's going to be around for generations. And then that generations from now, looking back, are going to look at it and be like, oh, we can't do that. So the rhetoric of such a compact is maximally benign, not referencing all the things that are being done, but at the same time still allowing those things to be done. So there's not going to be a lot of direct evidence in a compact like that that speaks of the atrocity, saying we have the right to do this and we have the right to do that and we're going to do this. It's not going to be like that. It's just non-spoken. But when you do see evidence of that lets one know, wow, okay, that means that's serious. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Article 1, Section 2, Paragraph 3. Free peoples in debt, non-human Africans held in bondage, and native people. So there it is right there. Now, in addition to that, when one knows about the ideology, Manifest Destiny, the annihilation of native people at that time, and further, subhuman Africans being subhuman, not equal to other races, that is atrocity. That is evil, and that's the law today. So and it discourages, as I said before, it discourages people to lie about it, to be deceptive about it, to ignore it, to pretend otherwise, to try to buy people away from it, and otherwise. But that's the nature of the corruption. So that is the reason. and recruiting people to participate, that immigrants who are coming from nasty situations, that there's empathy for that, but that does not excuse attaching oneself to an evil compact. We're wrapping up. Oh, the other thing also is that we don't need the United States. We don't need the U.S. Constitution. We don't need the technology of science. Life doesn't need this. What the world needs, including science in the United States or the semblance thereof, and all other entities, what the entire world needs is for world civilization to establish refuges where world civilization agrees to abstain from imposing the pollution and atrocities of world civilization. That's for the sake of all the world, all beings. So, don't need money, don't need cars, don't need even these joints. Mobile phones, internet, or otherwise. Just stay out the way. Stop killing everything. Stop polluting everything. Or at least find areas where things are not polluted and killed by world civilization. In the meanwhile, there are fines and there are penalties. And there are taxes for the atrocities and the pollutions and the evils. So, the sky is getting dark at the moment. Midday approaches. The squirrels are feeding strong. Yo, they making some eggs, because they be eating. Interesting phenomena, that. Eggs and embryos. Fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds. Eggs. The more produces eggs, lays the eggs, sits on the eggs, and then hatches or helps the hatching of the eggs. So there are 3 stages, distinct stages in the birth of a chick. The egg stage inside the mother, the more. The egg outside of the more and still growing, and then after hatching from the egg, being fed by the more until being able to feed oneself. It's interesting. I mean, I think about the period of gestation, like how long it takes for that to happen. How long does it take for the egg to grow inside the more? How long does it take for the egg to hatch? And then how long does it take for the baby bird to be able to feed itself, fly? And additionally, and what percentage of the lifetime of the bird is that? If a bird has a lifetime, 5-10 years, I don't know, a couple years, if that whole period of the egg is maybe a couple months from the beginning of formation inside the more to being laid into being hatched and growing to self-sufficiency and eating for the bird self, thunder. How long of a percentage of that is of the life of the bird? And I say that because when we look at mammals differ in terms of that duration, but What I'm thinking about right now is like, is it giraffe or wildebeest? No, not giraffe. I think it's zebra. Zebra and wildebeest. Yo, the gestation, like the pregnancy might be 8 months, 9 months, 10 months, a year. But that point from being born to being able to run is like 5, 10 minutes. Being born in the wild, yo, you got to run. Don't worry about walk, run. You got to learn how to outrun a lion in 10 minutes of birth. Now, elephants, I think, is different because I think the gestation, the pregnancy of an elephant is like 2 years. Um, and I think the elephant has to worry less about running per se. The elephant may have to walk, but like the elephants kind of, they got the mothers, they got the matriarchs there. Yo, they handle it. Now I think if the lions sniff like some new bird, that's something. But again, zebras, wildebeest, yo, it's stop, drop, and roll. Raindrops. So, all right, we gonna roll. It's an hour. Songs and music. That's what we're supposed to be doing. We find some beautiful things. Beautiful things. Oh, the whole wow. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna save this one for later, God willing. If at all, if at all. Anyway, yeah, I shared about the birds. That's a light thing. Uh, one other thing for people. One other thing for people. We know people want what is healthy. We know people want peace, ultimately, deep down. We know people are striving. We consider what people need to take further steps in this direction. What we do recognize is the telepathic connections, the telepathic euphorias, the telepathic strains. We recognize the severity of corruption and the fears herein. We recognize the aggressions amidst those fears and how those aggressions respond to healing itself. We recognize that the solution is not meeting the aggressions with aggressions. The whole paradigm of warfare is extremely different today. It's not a matter about stacking up tanks. It's not a matter about stacking up nuclear weapons. The nature of warfare is in here. It's in here. Those are like the forefront, like the front line. That's not the front line. It's like the strong front. The middle front is like the further things like pink slipping, and chemical warfare, biological engineering, and those type of stuff. And then like the third level, the lower tier kind of warfare is the bombs and tanks and guns and stuff like that, generally speaking. But the higher forefront of the warfare is is extremely, it's even like beyond thought. It's like we in the dreams, we in the thoughts, we in the language, um, and that's where it's like the powers that be don't have the monopoly. They don't even have the strong thing. That's the thing. They have a strong thing when it comes to second level in terms of biological engineering, nuclear, and that nuclear weapons is a little bit. It's kind of like between two and three. So the quote unquote powers that be, cults, and additionally have advantages in that respect. They don't have advantages at the higher element. They know that. They try to get into that, and that's why it's all about corruption and manipulation and causing fear, because they know one of the methodologies is seeing who's influential and then trying to like provoke them, because that's where that warfare at that higher level uh, uh, is done. So the solution in that respect is calmness, is patience. I do the best I can, um, and recognize that, yeah, I'm not trying to stack up laboratories to do biological engineering and DNA warfare. I'm not stacking up guns and nuclear arsenals and artillery or otherwise. So we're not even soldiers. We're teachers. We're healers. But we recognize that it's perceived as warfare at that higher level. So we have to do our best to be calm, be patient, be honest, not just with our words, but how we live, what we accept from this earthly realm, how we accept the trappings that come from the atrocities. It's very difficult to avoid that, particularly when living in the city in the industrialized society. So we have to be mindful of that. What's the reason why we're doing this? What's the purpose? Where is it going towards? That is how we navigate and mitigate and minimize our involvement in the atrocities, our feeding from the atrocities, our contributing to the atrocities. Ain't 100% clean. We do our best just like everybody else, and we encourage kinfolk to do further. So we work towards cooperating and increasing the way in which we cooperate in a peaceful, healthy, genuine way, fair way. So the additional element at that higher level is education. And for for people who are kind of like navigating through these other realms of the warfare, biological DNA warfare, and then the conventional weapons warfare. Then we got economic warfare as well. So it's a matter of encouraging kinfolk, and giving kinfolk knowledge, and strengthening kinfolk's understanding of this realm beyond all those things and how it influences. And additionally, in essentially, ultimately, like, you can't even talk about it because there's no describing it. Doesn't describe it. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. That's right there. That's what we talk about. So it's a matter of learning this art, learning this craft, learning this discipline, learning this Deen, this Tao, this Kabbalah. And that's this life. So with that being said, that is what is said. We give all thanks and praise the Most High Elohim. We give respect and honor to all our ancestors, all our prophets, all our sages, past and present, known and unknown. We give respect and honor to His Majesty Haile Selassie I, and Her Majesty Wazir Manan. We give respect and support to all our progeny from the first Siete years to the next Siete generations, door of door. One heart, one mind, one perfect love, supreme, blessed love and peace in Rastafari.